Hello, welcome everybody to another fun-filled night on Riposte. Riposte. That's the map. We are in the Atlanta, one of the ships I can pronounce, right? There we go. Mandatory horn hawk. We have the what is it? The Megadeth themed commander guys on the ship, right? So got the rock music in the background. Heyo! We'll make a little bit of an aggressive play here, trying to sneak our way out over to Zone A. This is kind of a little bit risky because anyone kind of in between, on the enemy side, over in between A and B, ish area. There's 4 battleships that we're up against. And if their airplanes were to have come this way and spotted us, we could get deleted from the game quite quickly. This is one of those cruisers, like many other cruisers, where you can die pretty quick if you're taking broadside hits, right? So I have a little bit of an indecision here on which side of the island to go on, right? Like I'm like, do I go the inside or outside, right? Inside or outside? And I'm looking at the ship setup, right? We don't have any destroyers, right? So I was almost a little bummed out because this is a really good destroyer killing ship, right? You got the radar and the sonar, and then these turrets move crazy fast, right? So, but the game plan here was like, all right, the airplanes aren't spotting us. We'll go inside and get up close to this next island up here, right? Like we'll be a little bit more aggressive, and of course this is a risk-reward situation, right? So if we can get ourselves tucked in back here, we could potentially end up with a really awesome firing spot where we can just kind of damage, farm, and whale on these battleships that are out here, right? And so this is so far working out for us, right? Like we got spotted for a second there. I'm not sure by what. Those bullets that are on the way looked like they were fired a little late, right? So they're probably either going to miss or not do too much to us. Yeah, and they completely missed. So I didn't even bother zooming out from our firing there, just because we saw those shells coming, just because I saw that they looked a little late. It looked like you pulled the trigger when we weren't spotted anymore, buddy. So we got some decent shots and decent angles here for these battleships to kind of just farm some HE shells with them, but we need our airplanes to go back over there and keep those battleships spotted for us, right? Or at least one of our battleships to kind of poke its nose out, right? I don't want to be the guy doing the spotting because that typically would mean somebody would have line of sight on us, and then we would be spotted, and then we'd probably die pretty quick just because of these battleships. So you'll notice we're taking a pretty conservative stance here, trying to stay close to fire here, and of course our bullets just went right through. That's how strong they are. They went right through that island. This Renown over here was a little bit of an aggressive play and a surprise to us, so we're going to have to deal with him for the time being. But yeah, you can see bullets from other battleships are just flying over these islands. They're taking those shots because, when you're a battleship and you see a cruiser, you want it dead, right? Like you're like, I can kill that guy in one salvo. Get him. And that's how people look at the Atlanta, right? So we had switched to AP there for a minute, and now we switched back again because we noticed somebody else triggered a fire on him, right? So it's like, all right, we might as well use the AP rounds. He's not that far away. If he's further away, I kind of would be like, maybe we'll keep using fireballs, right? But since he already had fires going on him, I figured the best way to do the most damage was use those AP shells. So it was a nice broadside angle we had on him. So luckily he didn't pay too much attention to us, and so we're still full on health. But I feel like if that Renown was a little bit more aware, okay, there's a cruiser that is pretty much broadside to us, and I didn't have too many other places to go just because we kind of put ourselves in a little bit of a pickle there behind that island. I feel like he could have really done some damage to us if not taken us out of the game, right? So, but he was hyper focused on somebody else, and he was kind of YOLO pushing into the zone too. So a lot of times you see people just going full forward in. They kind of, they don't always know what they're doing, right? So you can take advantage of that sometimes, and sometimes it works out for you. And in this scenario, it did, right? I preach that this game, a lot of it's circumstantial, right? Like you can have really awesome games and be a really bad player just because kind of things work out sometimes. But for the most part, you kind of gotta make your own way, right? Like you kind of gotta do the right thing. You know your ship's strengths and weaknesses and take advantage of those, right? So, and this ship's strength is, one of them is not being able to take a lot of gunfire, right? So, so we utilize cover a lot, especially in the ship. And the other thing too with this one is the bullets arch really high, and that makes it quite easy to utilize cover. So you'll be able to fire over mountains and islands and stuff pretty easily, more so than you can with a lot of the other cruisers. Yeah, and then the other thing too, we'll take advantage of the fact that we're uncontested in this zone and just make sure we get this capture, right? So this way we're ticking up points for our team. Both teams are down 2 ships, right? So I don't, if I can get this zone, that gives us 2 zones to their 0. That makes things all more better, right? So yeah, well, we'll continue to maintain a conservative position here and continue to utilize these island covers, right? So I'm trying to back up a little bit so this Nagato doesn't spot us too easily, but of course we're getting picked up by the airplanes anyway. So he's going to take the shot at us. This guy knows what he's doing a little bit more than that other dude in the Renown does, because this guy's like, ooh, cruiser, get it! Kill him! But yeah, and then airplanes aren't doing too good against us. We're getting those shot down. Typically, your American cruisers and battleships have pretty decent anti-air, right? So we have not done any commander perks or loadouts or anything in addition to for anti-air, at least, right? So, or for the most part, we're kind of range and accuracy with our guns. Is how I kind of like to load out the commanders for my American cruisers. Yeah, kind of now I'm like not quite sure what's spotting us, and then of course we duck out of being spotted, so it's possible it was that Nagato. But it just felt like he didn't have like a good line of sight on us, right? Then there's a cruiser in zone C and a smoke screen over there, right? So we just need somebody to pick him up, and we'd be able to pick on him as well. And then of course these battleships, on the battleship and the aircraft carrier and the other 2 cruisers, they're in, this island's in the way. We don't have good shots on them. And if I were to move out of this position, I'm sure very quickly they would focus their attention on us, right? So we don't want to put ourselves too much at risk just to be able to be shooting. Let's take our time and see what unfolds. Of course, you don't want to spend too much time out of play, because then you're not using your guns, right? So a little bit of a lower ledge here, so we're going to try and stop and see if we can't fire at this Collingwood from cover here. And it looks perfect, like the bullets are arching just perfectly over this little ledge here, right? So we'll take advantage of this as long as we can. We are getting spotted by the airplane, so if the Collingwood, if we notice, we'll keep an eye on his guns, right? So if we notice he starts to turn towards us, we'll start moving, right? But now, of course, we just need somebody to spot him for us. And we might be able to kind of damage farm here and see if we can't trigger some fires. It's always hard to tell, like, from these angles if they're moving forward or backwards, but, like, we're getting the hits. Yeah, it looks like he's heading this way. Sometimes, like, towards the, later game, like, mid to later game, people realize, like, all right, my team's screwed, or I'm screwed, and so they'll just, start going forward. Just take it. Which I think is what this guy's doing. So we get fire triggered from the airplanes bombing us, and I was like kind of not paying attention to it. And it was a little bit of a downfall for us. This Chumfun, I like to call him the Chumbawamba. I don't know, I can't pronounce ship names, so I just make up stupid names like a 10-year-old, right? We'll switch to AP, see if we can't do any more damage with our AP rounds against him. He does have pretty long-range torpedoes. I know those Pan-Asian cruisers. They've got those deep-water torpedoes that I think they go like 10 kilometers. So he could have potentially sent torpedoes in our direction. But we'll just keep, this kind of defensive angle against him and keep backing up. And then if he goes unspotted, we can trigger our radar here too. To try and pick him up. I know we've got 9-kilometer radar. Oh, maybe we're going to be idiots and not trigger our radar. Alright, let's move in a little bit. I can't remember if I used the radar, and if I didn't, like, I'm an idiot. Like, the American, is it not as good on the Atlanta? We gotta be able to pick him up, right? 7.7? Yeah, there we go. We picked it, yeah. I don't know if I was thinking, like, typically your standard American cruiser, it's, the radar range is 9 kilometers, so I was, like, annoyed with myself that I didn't trigger it earlier. Like, we could have been getting rid of this guy sooner, right? But maybe it's not as good for the Atlanta. I'm gonna have to go look now, right? We switched to HE there just because he was angling himself really well. There's those deep water torpedoes. So if you don't know, that those the ones with the rounded like icons, the torpedoes with those rounded icons, they're deep water torpedoes and they actually can't hit destroyers. So that's why they have a little bit of a different symbol. But, typically the kind of pro to, you know, there's the con, obviously you can't hit destroyers, but the pro to them is they can be a little bit harder to detect, I think. So you don't see them as quickly unless you've got like sonar or something going. And then, you know, I think some of them are, like, they do more damage potentially, you know, like it's always dependent on the ship too, right? There's always balancing stuff there. But the biggest thing there is, yeah, they're a little bit tougher to spot. And so you typically don't have as much reaction time if you're getting deep water torpedoes sent after you. And then of course the trade-off is they don't, you know, they can't hit destroyers. So even if you're in a destroyer, unless people shoot them at you all the time, it's just like this panic of like, oh, I gotta shoot something. I gotta get them off, right? But finally, we remembered to use our radar there and got rid of the cruiser, right? So we'll sneak into this zone and get the assisted capture medal on it. That gives us 3 zone captures. And then this Nagato, who played smart this whole game. But, you know, it's just his team didn't work out for him, so he ends up being the last guy, right? So we can kind of play, you know, rinse and repeat our strategy here and just, like, you know, use this little chunk of land to stay unspotted and unload damage on him, right? Make it rain fireballs! Look at that. Most of them are missing, but, you know, looks cool, right? Especially with the music, you know. There we go, damaged an anti-air gun. It does, you know, he's at like range like that. He's reaching our maximum range. Of course, it makes it quite a bit more difficult to get those hits on moving targets, right? So, but yeah, he did great work against our battleship. Good for him. Obviously, we don't want to, you know, you want to make sure you're in this winning scenario, right? Like, it's tough to lose this game at this point, but if everyone's going to YOLO push out and let the Nagato kill him and finish him off, it's still possible to lose. So we will make sure we get the win here. We won't get spotted by the Nagato, but I know this cruiser's out here, right? So we potentially can get spotted by him if we start opening up our guns. Then of course we have torpedoes on this ship, but the range is just god awful, right? So radar is about to be ready, so we'll be able to pick him up on radar. If we remember to actually freaking use it this time. There we go. And then, yeah, so we got a decent angle here. Of course, you can't see the ship itself, so it always, you know, you have to, a little bit of guesswork. You can always look up and aim higher, and I call it the, you know, your periscope, right? To see where the hull of the ship is, and then you kind of drop back down and, you know, actually line up your shot where you want it to go, right? So, but we'll take these cheapo shots at him. And the reason we're staying back here is because the second we poke our nose out and that Nagato sees us, he's going to want to shoot at us, right? So, but the other battleship, yeah, like I said, there were 2 battleships left, and now there's just the 1. So there was 3. Like, that Nagato made work of our team there. So we did the right thing and stayed back, make sure not to get spotted. You know, even though we had a lot of health, that Nagato could make pretty short work of us, right? He's got better range, but probably better accuracy, right? Bigger guns, all that fun stuff. So we take the number 2 spot in this game with 2400 XP. We were just slightly behind our allies there. But yes, thank you so much for watching through to the end, guys. We are trying to do World of Warships videos every single day. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to see more. We also do some like Minecraft and Elite Dangerous, some other crap that you might not be interested in. But obviously, do not like the video unless you actually like the video. Thanks for watching.